It seems the marketing for Assassin's Creed Shadows has finally kicked into gear. Recently, I made a video covering the combat article that showcased new combat gameplay and details about the combat system. Prior to that, I discussed the stealth article, which went over stealth gameplay and stealth features. Now, following the release of the combat article, the development team behind Assassin's Creed Shadows hosted an AMA, which means Ask Me Anything on Reddit. Basically a Q&A session where they went pretty deep into certain aspects of the game. They went over details about the modern day storyline, world exploration, main story length, how long the story is going to be, a fighting tournament, more about the Shinobi recruits, and much more. In this video, I want to go over that AMA and highlight everything that was said. Now, just a heads up, I'm pretty sure around 50 to 55 questions were answered, or something crazy like that. And while not all of them are equally interesting, I'll focus on the ones that matter the most to us. Just real quick, as you know by now, my goal is 100,000 subscribers and we are getting closer every day, so do consider hitting that subscribe button if you have not. And with that said, let's get right into it. We are now in the holiday season, and while you're busy gaming away and finding gifts for everybody else, don't forget about the most important person, which is yourself. This year, give yourself the gift of self-care with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra for Manscaped. At the heart of it all is the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra electric trimmer, designed for the ultimate flexibility, with 2 interchangeable skin-safe blades, one for precision trimming and another for a close clean shave. It's simply like decorating your Christmas tree, but you know, way more important. And check this out, it's even got a dual temperature LED spotlight, which makes sure everything is visible for those hard to see areas. Plus it's waterproof, so you can handle your grooming in the shower. Easy cleanup, zero stress. If you prefer a specific length, the lawnmower comes with 3 adjustable combs, so you can style your grooming exactly how you like it. And with a premium motor, USB-C, fast charging and a travel lock feature, this trimmer is as versatile as it gets, perfect for home or travel. And that's not all. The Weed Whacker 2.0 tackles nose and ear hair with ease, while the Crop Soothable Aftershave Lotion and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Lotion keep you fresh and irritation free. Razor burn is simply a thing of the past. Now here's the icing on the gingerbread house. Manscaped is throwing in 2 free gifts: the Boxers 2.0 with their signature jewel pouch for comfort and support, and the Shed 2.0 travel bag, perfect for keeping your grooming tools organized. So whether you're treating yourself or someone special this holiday season, the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is a gift that keeps on giving. Use my code HIDDEN1 to get 20% off, plus free international shipping at manscaped.com. Trust me, your jingle balls, and anyone who appreciates your grooming will thank you. Let's start off with some information regarding the Guardian enemy that was mentioned in the combat article. So Joe Raptor, who I'm sure you all know by now, asked about Guardians and if they continuously respawn or if you can get rid of them. The developers clarified that Guardians only appear when the bell rings, and they will search for you if they lose sight. They're also the toughest enemies in the game, and once defeated they will not respawn in the castle you're infiltrating, but they will respawn in the open world, on roads, and in other strongholds after you leave the area. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's similar to how reinforcements worked in AC Odyssey, which makes sense given that both games are worked on by the same Ubisoft studio. When it comes to weapon slots for Yasuke, he has 2 weapon slots that can be customized for either melee and ranged, or instead you can have 2 melee weapons. For example, you can equip a bow and a melee weapon, or switch between 2 melee weapons, depending on your playstyle. Charles Benoit, one of the developers answering the questions, mentioned his preference is using 2 melee weapons and swapping between them. Now, what's interesting about this is Naoe also has 2 melee slots, but instead she relies on her tools for ranged attacks. These tools remain accessible once unlocked, giving us a different approach to combat. When it comes to the link attack ability, which if you don't know is an ability that allows Yasuke to rapidly string together attacks and weapon abilities in a continuous flow. The developers mentioned that the link attack ability is tailored for chaining combos between melee weapons, allowing for uninterrupted staggered attacks on enemies. Now, while this feature does not directly upgrade melee to ranged combos, I'm pretty sure switching between melee and ranged weapons is already fluid by using free aim or the melee attack button. And the last part of this long ass question asked by Joe Raptor has to do with fight tournaments. Now, I missed that part in the combat article video, so just to give you a heads up, the combat article mentioned fight tournaments right at the end of the article, and Joe Raptor has asked him to further expand on this, and to be fair they did. So the developers responded that the fight tournament is a quest where you need to defeat a few opponents that are more handcrafted for specific challenges. Now this is great because I felt like something such as this should have been in Odyssey. Hopefully in Shadows these opponents could have unique abilities, fighting styles, playstyles or mechanics that differentiate them apart from the standard enemies in the game, and I hope to God that these enemies are not easy. I know Assassin's Creed is not a hard franchise at all, but hopefully some of the enemies in this game do provide some sort of challenge. Oh boy, now this is a question that got answered in the most PR friendly way, and it kind of annoys me. So this person asked, how long will the main game be in comparison to Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla? And what do you think they responded with? Was it A, 20 hours, B, 30 hours, C, 40 hours, or D, none of those, but instead decided to give the most pointless answer in human history? The correct answer is D. They responded with, I think Shadow's main journey is comparable to Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla. Now what on earth does that even mean? To say the game's length is similar to all three games makes no sense. There's like a 30 to 40 hour difference in length between Origins and Valhalla. So I managed to get nothing out of the answer. Are they implying that the length is in between Origins and Valhalla? I have no idea. But, big but, the person did also ask another question. How much does dialogue options and choice play into the game compared to Odyssey? And to be fair, the response they gave was quite valid. So essentially, choices are present and they have an impact on the story. But you see, in Odyssey, there were a ton of branching dialogue options that would get nowhere, whereas in Shadows, it's less of this. In fact, the only time choices would be more important was when recruiting allies and for romance options. Now here's the part that got a lot of people excited when they answered. They are introducing an option named Canon mode, and what this mode does is, instead of the game presenting you dialogue choices in the story that might not be considered canon, this mod will already make the choices for you, essentially giving you, as they say, a choice-free experience. And this is a big positive. I mean, hey, at least they acknowledged in this answer that dialogue options are pretty divided in the community, so they are giving us the best of both worlds. Now personally, I'm probably going to play with this option off at first to first experience the game naturally, and then of course on subsequent playthroughs after, I'll definitely have it on. Now, a great question asked about Shadows asked how different Yasuke and Naoe will feel to play compared to Syndicate, where, you know, let's be real, Jacob and Evie felt very similar in their playstyles, despite being advertised as one being stealthy and the other being a brawler. The question also expands on whether we can mix up their roles. The developers explained that Yasuke and Naoe will have very distinct playstyles, with unique weapons, skill trees and gear to upgrade. Now that is of course expected. One worry I had was that we'd be able to level up a skill tree that will affect both Yasuke and Naoe at the same time, so at least this confirms that they'll have separate skill trees. Another interesting part of the answer was that while they both have some activities specific to them, most things in this game can be tackled by either character, but in their own unique style. I like this. It'll give us plenty of freedom to play how we want, while still keeping the characters pretty distinct from each other. Now, in contrast, something that people could be annoyed at is, well, you know those black and white finishes that we saw in the gameplay shown? Well, you cannot turn them off. Now, to be fair, I don't mind this. Now, the reason I say I don't mind this is because it's only for specific targets, not every type of enemy, so I can't really see how this will get annoying at a certain point. It's more so an intentional part of how the abilities are presented in this game. Now, this is a question that I'm glad got answered, and it's pretty positive. So when asked about the Shinobi recruit system, and if it's going to be similar to the older games, the developers explained that it's a bit different from the older games. Instead of leveling up generic recruits, you'll be able to recruit a few specific characters who will become your allies. Each of these allies has their own story, quest, and unique abilities. Now, this is simply just great. If you recall the recruit system from Assassin's Creed 3, I found that part of the game very underrated. The fact that we had a kind of separate storyline with that assassin recruits was something interesting. I wasn't really a fan of how it was done in Odyssey, where you could recruit people by knocking them out to be on your ship. That felt way too lazy. So to know that Shadows will feature Shinobi recruits with their own stories and unique abilities sounds promising. It's all in the hands of Quebec to see if they can pull it off. So please don't f that part up. They also mentioned that you can choose 1 or 2 allies to assist you, tailoring them to your playstyle. Some allies are fighters, great for combat, while others are more stealth focused. Now, of course, this is dependent on what type of playstyle you choose in the game. For example, one of the developers mentioned that they enjoy using a stealth focused ally with Yasuke to add more stealth. When asked if all the optional content in Shadows can be completed with either Yasuke or Naoe, the developers explained that while there's a lot of flexibility, some activities are character specific. Most open world content is available to both characters, but certain activities are created specifically for one or the other. For example, Naoe, who has been trained in Kujikiri meditation techniques, which I believe refers to a series of 9 symbolic hand gestures, each representing specific spiritual or mystical powers. These gestures are believed to provide protection, improve focus and channel energy. Now, it's likely that these hand gestures will serve as a way to unlock skills and earn XP, given its apparent importance. Anyway, where was I? Naoe can perform related activities in the open world, while Yasuke focuses on learning new kata, making these activities exclusive to him, kata being a reference to martial arts movements. The developers also mentioned that both characters have unique personal story moments that dive deeper into their motivations, and can only be played with that character alone. So I assume once we start that character specific quest, it's going to lock us out for a certain period of time from playing as the other character, which I don't mind at all. Another question that was asked to the developers is if Shadows would include a notoriety system like in AC Mirage, or if it would be more like the bounty hunters from Odyssey. The developers explained that the game has its own system called the Wanted system, and here's how it works. So if you get caught in a castle, enemies can ring a bell to trigger an alarm. This alarm does not just alert the entire castle, but it also escalates to the entire province, making it a much bigger deal. Once this happens, a special enemy type which I've already talked about called the Guardians spawn, along with other military archetypes. And they'll all be looking for the protagonist who set off that alarm. Now that's pretty cool because let's say Naoe was the one to set that alarm off. If I suddenly switched to Yasuke after, they would only search for Naoe, or at least I think that's how it works. What's also interesting to note is that the Wanted system stays active for the entire in-game season, but you're not stuck with the heat if you don't want to deal with it. You've got a few options: wait for the season to end, explore another region, switch to the other protagonist, or use the scouts to cancel the alert. Now by the way, when they say season, they don't mean battle pass season, so let's get that stupid ass thought out of your head. They mean seasons such as in winter, summer and so on. You may be thinking I did not need to clarify that, but I promise you people were thinking that. Now this AMA was not all sunshines and rainbows. This was the part that disappointed me the most. Somebody asked if we're going to see Basim in this game, and if he's part of the story. Because if you don't know, spoiler warning for Valhalla by the way in 3, 2, 1. Basim is now the modern day protagonist, and they just straight up answered that question by saying,
"Fuck out of here, boy. Get that weak shit out of here."
However, the key word is currently. They said he's currently not part of the story. Now what that could mean? No idea. Maybe he's planned to be in a DLC, I have no idea. But that is still disappointing because, why build up Basim in the modern day just to be excluded entirely? Hopefully when they say currently, that actually means something meaningful. Another question asked was to do with Yasuke, and what kind of story could we expect from him in the game? Now, to be fair, that's a loaded question that no developer would ever answer because it would reveal too much. But they did respond saying that his journey in the game will include important moments, like his arrival in Kyoto and his rise to becoming a samurai. Now, if you don't know, Kyoto is of course the city that the real Yasuke, and yes, real Yasuke, he was real. Let's just reiterate that for those people that cannot fathom it. This was the city he arrived at in 1579. Now, while they did not reveal too many details, they teased that there are some surprises in store. But then again, that's a PR answer. When the developer says there are surprises in store, just know that means absolutely nothing. Or it could mean a lot, but they obviously cannot say. Oh, and just a heads up, there are quite a few PR answers in this AMA, so do be prepared. Speaking of PR answers, they did answer a question about Yasuke and Naoe, in that how their relationship would evolve in the game, and the response they gave was stuff we already know, such as how they start off on two different sides. Now we've seen this in the cinematic trailer where Yasuke arrives with Nobunaga's soldiers to invade the homeland of Naoe, being the Iga province. However, during the game, their paths come together and they form a league together around common cause. Now what's interesting and kind of annoying about that answer is they form a league together. Now God knows what that means. It could be referring to the Assassin League, which is what their version of the Brotherhood is called. I mean, why not just call it the Brotherhood? The game is set during a time where it's evolved into the Brotherhood, and it's no longer the Hidden Ones anymore. But hey, I guess they wanted to complicate things for no reason at all. Another interesting part of the answer they gave was, this path is not always smooth and straight, and their unique backgrounds and perspectives do not always align. I guess this could be referring to choices. I do know that we'll have the opportunity to influence parts of their relationship by making key choices in the story, so I wonder how that can play out. So this person got a bit greedy and decided to ask 3 questions all at once. But to be fair, there were some pretty good questions. So pretty much this person asked about seasons and how they would change, and if we were able to skip time like we could in past games. And the response he got was fairly mixed. So pretty much different seasons are initiated when time simply passes by in the game, and in some situations, seasons are story related. The developer also answered his skipping time question by simply saying, no, you cannot skip time. Now how do you guys feel about that? I feel like for an open world RPG game such as this, skipping time should be a feature, but then again, that would mess with the season system, so in a way it also does make sense. Somebody asked about how loot, armor and weapons are distributed in Shadows, and whether the system is similar to Valhalla and Mirage, or more like the older games with natural progression and store-based upgrades. And the answer that he got was gear is primarily found in chests, especially in restricted zones. But there's more variety to how you can obtain equipment. Unique enemies and key targets will drop some of the best gear in the game, and legendary items can be found in locked chests within castles, giving players strong incentives to explore and complete these areas. Additionally, unique gear can also be earned as quest rewards, or purchased from merchants scattered across the world, ensuring there are multiple ways to upgrade your loadout. Now, this is not that bad because if you don't know, Shadows will not have, leg pieces, foot pieces, bracers, etc. Instead, it's just a headpiece and an outfit piece, and that's according to JoeRaptor. So finding legendary loot or more rare loot is more rewarding, as it's the entire piece, if you know what I'm trying to say. Now, this question is more so about the development process for the game. Somebody asked the developers about the most challenging and fulfilling aspects of creating Assassin's Creed Shadows. Charles Benoit explained that the biggest challenge was building the game while simultaneously improving the engine to deliver a fully next-gen experience, and that makes sense, considering Shadows is using a new engine, or rather a new version of the Anvil engine. I can't imagine how tricky it must be to constantly work on an engine that's at the same time always changing. However, he described his most fulfilling moment as the point in production when everything, so that's the mechanics, visuals, quests and story, came together cohesively. For Charles Benoit, that feeling of seeing the game take shape was so rewarding that he admitted skipping the games he had at home to keep playing Shadows instead. Another question that was given was if Shadows would incorporate activities from earlier games, such as the mercenaries and conquest battles from Odyssey, or territory liberation from Syndicate. This person also wanted to know how NPCs would behave beyond reacting to seasonal changes. The developers confirmed that some familiar elements would return. For example, castles in Shadows will have objectives, which would be similar to forts in Odyssey. Now that's questionable. I'll need to see more on that before I judge it. However, they emphasized that they did not just copy features from the previous games. They drew inspiration from the setting and created new experiences unique to Shadows. So once again, I hope it's not pretty mundane like Odyssey's forts were, because I'll be honest, as fun as they were at first, they did get pretty repetitive very quickly. The same person also asked what we could expect from NPCs in terms of how they react to seasonal changes, schedules, objectives, sleeping patterns and stuff like that. And the developers mentioned in terms of NPCs and seasonal impacts, they shared how the world dynamically reacts over time. Seasonal changes affect the crowd and ambience, such as lights being turned on or off with servants adjusting them. Additionally, after each season, resources that we obtained in previously visited areas are replenished, and factions in power may shift. These shifts can lead to new challenges, such as locked doors that require finding keys, while also affecting resource availability. This one right here is a positive. You know how in Odyssey and Valhalla, there were multiple endings? Well, way more in Odyssey. Well, there was a question that was asked in regards to if Shadows would feature multiple endings. However, what's good to know is the developers clarified that there is only one canon ending, but there will be multiple paths leading up to it. So thank God for that. I don't know about you, but seeing the 9 different endings in Odyssey just pissed me off, because they were so insignificant in how you would approach them to get through the endings. Now, these paths in Shadows will be shaped by the choices we make throughout the story, determining who joins or does not join the protagonists on their journey. Somebody asked about the structure of the story in Shadows, expressing concern about its non-linear approach. They worried that a story where we tackle targets in any order could hurt character development, story arcs and villains, and to be fair, that's a valid point. They wanted to know if there would still be linear cinematic missions and set pieces. Of course, if you don't know what a set piece is, just imagine that Lisbon earthquake mission from Assassin's Creed Rogue, or Ezio being dragged by that cart at the start of Assassin's Creed Revelations. Those are set pieces, moments that are cinematic. The developers responded by explaining that having 2 protagonists allows for a mix of personal and shared storylines. Scenes where the 2 interact highlight their growth and relationships, while their individual storylines dive deeper into their backstories and motivations. The league they form acts as a main point in the game's fractured world, and the story is told through various means: cinematics, personal histories, and quests. They also praised the cinematic team, sharing how emotional some of them were because of some moments, to the point where they literally cried at some scenes. I mean, fair enough. They also clarified how the non-linear storytelling works, so players can approach most main target missions in any order, with the game suggesting an optimal path based on exploration and progression. However, each target's story includes more structured cinematic sections to keep things engaging. The ability to choose between NAOE and Yasuke also impacts how some questlines play out. I guess this response from them reassures a lot of people that while the story does offer freedom, it still has the depth, the character development and cinematic moments we've come to expect from the series in the past. Another question asked was to do with parkour, and this person wanted to know if the parkour system in Shadows would feature moves like leaping to facades, which is a feature that we saw in Unity, Syndicate and Origins. Now if you don't know what a facade is, because I'll be honest, I had no idea myself, it's pretty much this clip. Anyway, they responded by explaining that the parkour mechanics are heavily influenced by the architecture and layout of the game world. Since Shadows does not really have many tall buildings outside pagodas and castle tenchus, the developers did not prioritize interactions like leap facades or facade leaps. Instead, they focused on making parkour fluid and logical for the environment, which makes sense. They also mentioned having smooth transitions for up and down movements and beam traversal. NAOE in particular benefits from a faster parkour style, making her movement feel quick and agile. To help cover large gaps, the game has a grappling hook, which we already heard about, that lets you swing from roof to roof. However, they did hint that more details about the parkour system would be shared soon, and I'm pretty sure this developer is referring to the parkour article that we'll most likely see within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Staying on the topic of parkour, somebody asked, in terms of parkour, how will it be for cities, side and back ejects, and also parkour focused challenges, such as the tombs from Assassin's Creed 2? And that's actually a pretty good question because I want to know myself. So they responded by confirming that large cities like Kyoto and Osaka will allow for rooftop parkour, which I guess is obvious, with players able to use trees and the grappling hook to swing across the streets. While Japan's historical setting means fewer tall buildings compared to other Assassin's Creed games, the focus is on making parkour fast and fluid, especially for climbing and jumping off rooftops. They did mention that side and back eject moves are still in the game and are pretty effective, so hey, at least they're keeping those mechanics intact. They also did mention something that was interesting, and that was the game will feature underground caves hidden in Kofun, offering parkour challenges. I don't really know what Kofun is. According to Google, Kofun are megalithic tombs, whatever that means. They also mentioned that there's something called hidden trails designed specifically for NAOE. This question right here is a game changer, especially for those familiar with the already established Assassin's Creed lore. So somebody asked if Xiaohu, HATTORI Hanzo and Yamauchi would appear in Shadows as assassins. While the developers avoided giving away too much, they did confirm that Hanzo will be in the game. Now this is exciting because HATTORI Hanzo is already in the AC lore. He was a famous samurai and ninja who served Tokugawa Ieyasu, who is a pretty important figure in uniting Japan. Hanzo was known for his skill with the Yari spear, and he was also part of the Japanese Brotherhood of Assassins, helping them fight against the Templars. So the fact that he's going to be in Shadows can really only mean he'll be an assassin and will aid them. Hanzo also played an important role in securing the Sword of Eden, and even defeated all of his rivals. I'm already thinking about how he'll play a role, especially with the likes of Nobunaga, Fujiyabashi Nagato, and so on. I do hope he's an important character because it would be pretty cool to see Hanzo from a mainline game perspective, and not some role-playing trading card game. This particular question that was asked was pretty cool, to be fair. So you remember those contract boards in Mirage? Well, this person wants to know if this would return in Shadows. The developers revealed that Shadows has its own version of the system called the Objective Board. This Objective Board serves as a visual quest log, displaying your targets, their organizations, and the people who gave you objectives. It's essentially a place to track everything you need to do, such as clues you've gathered and quests related to specific characters. You know, I think what they're referring to is a simple journal, if I'm being honest, but they're being pretty fancy in the way they're talking about it. This next question doesn't really have much to do with the game itself, but a fan asked if the developers traveled to Japan and how they made sure an authentic representation of culture and environment in Shadows is implemented. The team confirmed that they did indeed travel to Japan for a field trip, working very closely with experts and historians to gather as much accurate information as possible. They mentioned how it was similar to their trip for Greece, which is of course in reference to AC Odyssey. I just hope the game is historically valuable, like every other AC game. Yes, they f***ed up with flags and minor things like blossoming or whatever the people are crying about, but let's just hope it's represented well, because at the end of the day, almost every Assassin's Creed game is also a history lesson in a way. Staying on the topic of history in Japan, somebody asked if the game will have a database, and the developers confirmed that it will. Much like in Mirage, this game will feature a database with gameplay tutorials and historical entries. This will help players explore their journey while also learning more about Japan's history and culture. So that's pretty good. It would have been nice to see a discovery tour like we got in Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla, but then again, I can only imagine something such as a discovery tour would be implemented later on in the game. I say this because, you know, later on in the AMA, the developers responded to a question regarding the discovery tour in which they stated they don't have a discovery tour for now. Now, key phrase there is for now. Here's the definition of a PR answer. Somebody just simply wanted to know a little tease about the Brotherhood and how it's going to be linked to our protagonist, and the developers simply just said, go f yourself. Nah, I'm just kidding. While the developers were careful not to reveal much, they hinted that the connection between the protagonist and the Brotherhood will be surprising for players. So make of that PR answer what you will. Here's a pretty innocent question. Somebody asked if Yasuke and Naoe could form meaningful relationships with the inhabitants of our hideout, and whether permanent romantic relationships like those in Valhalla would be possible. The developers explained that the hideout serves as a gathering place where allies, friends, and even lovers gather after being recruited or befriended. Now to me, I can only imagine the hideout being very similar to Ravensthorpe, except the settlement building is way more advanced. I do expect the characters there to also act as they did in Valhalla, which were decent, but hopefully it's a lot more meaningful in that they have interesting storylines to them, because I'll be honest, somebody like Petra from Valhalla, I just forgot about instantly. Staying on the topic of the hideout, somebody asked a question if base upgrades similar to those in Valhalla would return in Shadows, and if the Shinobi village, which I think he meant to say hideout, could be upgraded to unlock new skills. The developers confirmed that the hideout offers even greater freedom for customization than previous games. We were able to decorate the hideout by adding features like fences, trees, ponds, which sounds pretty cool, and even pets collected during exploration. Are we kidnapping animals? You can also build and upgrade rooms, placing them wherever you like, even connecting them to existing structures. These upgrades are not simply cosmetic, they provide gameplay benefits such as improving scouts, improving allies through the dojo, unlocking engraving options at the forge, or adding a tea room to boost ration efficiency. They also expanded on this answer, talking about as the hideout levels up, it unlocks new rewards and becomes a more vibrant space. Charles Benoit mentioned that one of his favourite aspects is seeing the allies you recruited interact with each other, and also the protagonist Naoe and Yasuke making the hideout feel alive and dynamic as you progress throughout the game. Will there be a permadeath mode? Something we eventually got in Assassin's Creed Mirage. Well, according to the developers, they responded to this question saying that there will not be a permadeath mode, at least at launch. Now, while this feature is not planned for sure, the response that they gave leaves room for potential additions or new modes post-launch. This one is quite funny. Well, funny is the wrong word, so maybe not funny. I meant to say interesting to know. Somebody asked if there were any fun or interesting stories from the development of Shadows, and they shared an anecdote from the motion capture process, which involved plenty of flips and acrobatic moves to bring the game's action to life. Now, during one session, they said a stuntman unfortunately broke his leg performing a move. I mean, if that's not dedication, then I don't know what is. This particular question and answer is for those that for some reason don't believe the delay has a positive impact on the game, even though we can quite evidently see the difference with our eyes. It's night and day. Somebody asked how the development focus shifted following the delay. They responded saying that the extra time has been invaluable for polishing, debugging and balancing the game. They shared specific examples of improvements made, such as tweaking the parkour system to make it feel more fluid and responsive, addressing the quote-unquote stickiness issues which we all could see, especially when they showed us this clip of Naoe doing parkour, and also refining rooftop behaviors to improve Naoe's movement. Other areas like parry mechanics and cinematic transitions were also fine-tuned to elevate the overall quality of the game. So take it from the developers themselves, this delay has benefited the game, and if you can't see that, then like I said in the last video, get your ass to Specsavers because you are blind. This one right here is for those that are fans of photo mode. Somebody asked if the photo mode would have features such as movable light sources, the ability to zoom in for detailed close-ups, and whether eagle vision highlights would disappear when using the mode. Now, I'm going to take a guess and say he's asking this because of the Cyberpunk update that came out quite recently, where they made photo mode incredible. Like seriously, they made it very good. Anyway, they responded that the photo mode in Shadows has been completely rebuilt with a revamped interface and will continue to receive additional improvements over time, which is a big positive. You know, as somebody that creates content, I do hope I can get a good use out of this because photo mode, when done right, can be used to make some incredibly well done shots. We're nearing the end of this AMA, but we've got a few questions left to go over. Now, somebody asked if Shadows would have the options for controller mapping, camera distance, and HUD customizations at launch. The developers confirmed that we will have plenty of customization options. These include HUD adjustments, controller remapping, and additional settings like camera autofollow and aim assist parameters. To be fair, I do expect this stuff to naturally be in the game anyway, so at least they're reassuring us that it is. One question asked was if the Western release of the game would have a Japanese voice option. The developers happily confirmed that it would. Players will have access to a quote-unquote immersive mode, featuring full Japanese voice acting alongside other available languages. This is something we've already known about for a while, but if you did not know, the land size of Shadows is similar to Origin's land. Somebody asked if Yasuke would be able to climb and perform silent assassinations. The developers confirmed that Yasuke can climb, though not as quickly or high as NAOE. As long as he can reach beams or ledges, he'll be able to traverse vertically. When it comes to assassinations, Yasuke does not have a hidden blade, which is pretty obvious. We know he doesn't join the Brotherhood, so his skills are performed with his weapons and are not silent. However, players can still approach stealth gameplay by utilizing his silent arrows, which are very effective but come with limited ammo. And the last question, or questions, because this person asked multiple, was about the role of BASIM, whether the modern day plot will continue after Valhalla, and also how Japanese lore from transmedia sources fit into the game. The developers, while careful to avoid spoilers, explained that Shadows will establish a new character in the modern day story. This storyline will be different from past approaches, but will still connect to the established lore. It's designed to evolve over time through the Animus hub, and also future titles in the series, with more details to come from the AC team. Regarding the Japanese lore from transmedia content such as Assassin's Creed Memories and Assassin's Creed Blade of Xiaojun, the developers admitted that they had to rework some of the elements to fit the world and story of Shadows. Of course, earlier they did mention HATTORI HANZO as somebody appearing in the game, and to be fair, this response from them kind of hints, to me at least, at a balance between honouring existing material and even adapting it for the game's story direction. And there we have it. That was the entire AMA that they held on Reddit. Now, of course, I did skip over a few questions and answers that were pretty irrelevant and not interesting that nobody would care about. But the ones I did go over in this video are pretty interesting to know. What do you think about everything that was talked about in this AMA? What particular part of it interests you the most? Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And with that said, I will see you in the next one.